Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some PathOfExile discussion. Patch 3.19's challenges are among the easiest that we've seen in PathOfExile in a long time. However, there are 16 of them that I think are different in difficulty to what people might initially expect, and so I want to just quickly go through those, point them out, and tell you whether you should be taking these more seriously or less seriously than you expect. So let's start with Exile Against the World. This requires you to activate an Echoing Shrine. You're probably not going to find this through pure RNG. You're probably going to need to spec your Atlas towards shrines in order to find that. They're pretty rare otherwise. You might get one, but otherwise you're going to need to spec into it. Shape the Lake is next, and here there's two things that are not completely trivial. There's Swap Reflections, which is a common option to have, but is something that's usually pretty useless to do. And then there's Change a Water Tile into an Empty Tile, which is a fairly rare choice. Just keep these two in mind when you are working on your initial lakes at Kalandra, and you'll get them in no time. Complete Abyss Encounters is next. This is just really grindy. One part of this challenge requires you to complete a single map that has at least 5 abysses in it. This map has to be tier 14 or higher. The way you're going to do this is going to be by finding a map that has an abyss implicit on it. There's a few ways to get this. Kerax sells them, or you can get them via the use of various Atlas passives. Once you've got this, you'll then need to augment it further with some combination of sextants and or scarabs. Just make sure that they're definitely going to add up to 5 before you use the rarest piece of the puzzle, which is that map that has the abyss implicit on it. Everything else in this is pretty reasonable, but completing 75 abysses takes time, so don't leave this to the end of the league. And also completing 10 abyssal depths is something that is going to be one of those unpleasant things to have hanging over your head near the end of the league. Ambush Encounters is next, and it's here because of Cartographers, Operatives, and Vaal Vessel. To get a Vaal Vessel in a map, you need to be doing the Vaal Temple map. To get an Operative Strongbox, you need to spec into them on the passive tree, and Cartographer's Strongboxes are just rare. I actually happen to get this through the use of a rare and corrupted Cartographer's Strongbox in the Lake of Kalandra myself. I'm yet to have found one in a map, and for some reason I did get credit for that. Complete Heist Encounters is next, and I'm pointing this one out because complete contracts of level 81 or higher is something that takes a little bit of time to do. This is only going to be 2 hours, but it is one that you're going to need to keep in mind. Additionally, you're going to need to use Heist on the map device probably in order to get all of the blueprints you need for this. And you'll probably want to spec into the nodes on the passive tree to double the chances of getting a blueprint. Next is Legion Encounters. This one's actually a pretty big one because of Warhordes. These are fairly RNG to encounter normally through mapping. They're there in Legions, they're often there, but they're not super common. And as a result, you'll find that this will take the longest of the parts of Legion Encounters. Harvest Life Force is next. This would not be particularly hard except for one thing, and that is that Harvest is not on the map device this league. So you're going to need to add Harvest via other means. 100 crops is something that you will need to find Kirak missions that have got harvests in them. That's going to be the easiest way to get that done. By the time you've done that, you'll have enough life force, especially if you prioritize ones that have tier 3 monsters in them. Harvest bosses are somewhat RNG. You will definitely get this if you do Einhar's Memory of the Sacred Grove. And then Harvesting the Heart of the Grove. This is an RNG drop from the Harvest bosses. If you're in Trade League, you definitely want to buy this one rather than relying on finding it yourself. Tainted Crafting is next. This requires you to do 6 that are common. So you're going to need to use an Armorer's Scrap, Blacksmith's Whetstone, Jeweler's Orb, Fusing Orb, Mythic Orb, Chromatic Orb. All of those are pretty common. You'll get them all. Next, you need to use one of the rare ones. Tainted Exalt, Tainted Chaos Orb, and Tainted Divine Teardrop. Don't ask me why Tainted Chaos Orbs are rare. They just are. You're going to need to use one of those in order to get this challenge done. Form the Lake is next, and this is something that's going to require probably more grinding of the Lake of Kalandra than anything else here, and that's because Dusk Rings, Penumbra Rings, Gloam Rings, Tenebrous Rings, and Shadowed Rings are rare, and there's no way to target them. Ethereal Reflecting Mist is rare, but in trade you can buy a tablet that has that on it. So this one's going to take you a while to get done. Unique Realms is next, and this is the one to do all of the unique maps. That includes Doriani's Machinarium and the Vinktar Square. Vinktar Square first, you need to vendor all 4 Agnorod staves, so this is Agnorod South, Agnorod West, Agnorod East, Agnorod North, in one transaction, and then you'll receive back the Vinktar Square unique map. That's about the only way you can get that map. Then you'll need to do a Doriani's Machinarium. 2 sources of this. The first one is Comprehensive Scouting Reports, so near the bottom left of the Atlas passive tree, you can spec into those, and then you'll find that you'll sometimes get a Comprehensive Scouting Report drop. They were nerfed after 3.17. In 3.17, Kirax missions, when you re-roll them with a Comprehensive Scouting Report, could give you Doriani's Machinarium as a tier 5, 10, or 16 map. Now it's only tier 16 that can drop Machinarium, and that's made it rarer, but it's not staggeringly rare, and if you do spec into that section of the passive tree, you will get this. Alternately, one of the most lucrative bosses in the game is a delve boss, Ahua Totli the Blind now, as he's got Doriani's Machinarium as one drop, and also has one of the Ultimatum aspects as another one. Perfect Ascension is next. This requires you to do all 3 of the enriched endgame labyrinths. These things are no joke to actually beat. They're not staggeringly hard or anything, but they will put up a bit of a fight. However, the main thing is just getting all of the different labyrinth keys. The way you're going to want to do this is to spec the cluster on your Atlas passive tree that causes labyrinth trials found in your maps to have a 20% chance to award an upgraded offering to the goddess. Now, when you find one of these Trials of Ascendancy in a map, what will happen is that it will tell you that it's awarding an upgraded version. It won't tell you which version. You'll have to go in and actually run it in order to find out. This actually isn't a bad cluster at the moment with how valuable Gifts of the Goddess are currently. Even if you're only 1 in 3 to get a Gifts of the Goddess, and most of the time you're going to get one of the other 2, it's still fine. You're still going to average a lot of currency each time you find one of those labyrinth trials. And the times that it's just going to drop an ordinary offering to the goddess, you just run straight past it. Overcome the Lake is next. There's nothing particularly hard about this. It's just that you need to remember to spawn these things because they're not something you would normally bother putting on your tablets. So you're going to need to go out of your way to put things like Chaos Map bosses onto your tablets, which is something you probably wouldn't do through natural gameplay. And you might need to prioritize them over better rewards occasionally. Additionally, you'll need to not exile these straight away. And so my plan at the moment is to just start exiling Fire, Lightning, and Physical, but not exile Cold, not exile Chaos for a little while until I've got those done. Then at that point, we'll clean up the rest of the trash there, and then we'll start exiling these first, as is normally the case. Trial of Chaos is next. Encountering the Trial Master requires you to find 4 pieces of the Ultimatum aspect. One of these drops from the Vaal Temple bosses, it's not very rare. One of these drops from Uberatsuri, it's not very rare. One of these drops from the Vaal Omnitech, the boss of Elva's Incursion Temple. This one would be fine, that's the easiest of these encounters to get to and the easiest to beat. However, that is actually a very, very rare drop. So that's one of the rare ones. But the real rare one here is from Ahuatotli the Blind. I got one of these the other day, I turned around and sold it for 6 Divine Orbs. The way to do this if you're in a trade league is to find someone that is running a Trial Master service and basically buy one of their portals. You'll be able to do that and it'll cost you a Divine Orb or 2, and then you'll get yourself your credit here. Now, the people who are running these services are making a staggering amount of currency. If you want to make currency this league, get good at the Trial Master fight, run a service for it, and you will make yourself a lot of currency. If I had any goals that were going to cost 10 mirrors a Kalandra this league, that's exactly what I'd be doing. If you're in solo self-found, this is going to be your 39th or 40th challenge, so keep that one in mind. Modified Atlas Grind is next. This is one where you need to kill map bosses, and you need to make a beeline for the map boss after elking, and ideally also Vaaling the map. Your best bet here is going to be to run Mesa maps and Foundry maps. Set up your Atlas so that they're your favorited maps, and when you've done that, you'll find that those are the map bosses you can get to quickest, but this is going to take a while. This is not on your path to 38, this is only for people who are doing 40 challenges this league. Even if you're in solo self-found, you can probably skip this one because endgame grinds is much easier. Divine Revenge is next. This is somewhat RNG based, but if you want to rig the odds in your favor, run a bunch of Heist. Heist has more rare monsters per minute than pretty much anything else in the game, and so Heist will just allow you to roll a dice more often. It's not staggeringly rare. I had all of this done by the time I was character level 85, but most people are getting it done in between 90 and 95. Finally, we have endgame grinds. Normally, this would be only for people who are doing 40 challenges. Normally, it would be particularly obnoxious and mean. This time, it is definitely not. Argus in the in-game labyrinth is a pain. It's a horrible encounter to do, but it's not very hard. Sometimes Argus will be in the first room of the lab. When that happens, group up with other players. Each of you provides a few of the labyrinth offerings, and you go and kill Argus, and you just keep repeating it. You go in and do it as a group, and it'll be over reasonably quickly and painlessly. Tier 16 maps with Atlas memory modifiers is the easiest endgame grind I think we've ever had. Reflections of difficulty at least 3 in area level 83 Lakes of Kalandra is also very easy. And then you've got one of the others, level 100, Maven Invitations, or defeat one of the various bosses. I would suggest Maven Invitations is the easiest one here, especially if you're in Trade League, and especially if you're someone who can run a boss carry service. Anyways, that's all I got for now. May your Val Orbs have interesting results.